Welcome to another Keelhauled podcast. I'm your host, Captain Logan, and we've got a lot of Sea of Thieves news to cover today. So tie yourselves to the mast and hold fast. Ahoy there, pirates. I hope you had yourselves a good week and a good weekend. I know I did. This week, we're going to be talking all about the latest update for Sea of Thieves for Season 18, what to understand or know when it comes to the Eternal Guardian, the Sanctuaries. We're going to be covering the patch notes this week and talking a little bit about the orb stream that happened this weekend. All that and more in this week's episode of Keelhauled Podcast. But before I get into any of that, I have to thank the patrons. They're the ones that went over to patreon.com to show their support for this content. And believe it or not, during the month of December, I'm going to be giving a discount to anyone that signs up. So monthly memberships are going to have 20% off during the month of December using the code GIVING. It's all capital letters, just the word GIVING, GIVING. So that's going to be available if you guys want to jump in and help support, and we're looking for a way to save some money at the same time. Always appreciate it, but it's never required. But as such, I'd like to offer a thanks to those that are currently subscribing by calling out their names every episode. So thank you to A-Chick, L-Cute, Balls, Blue Turtle V1, Captain Chonky, Captain Longsharts, Chateau Noof, Super Pack, Zombie Killer, Cosmic Johnson, Static Mirror, Crazy Frog, Davram TV, El Jefe Esteban, Godhammer 6, Carl Embo of Embo Family Gaming, Kylea the Aficionado, Elvin Vramir, Evil Morpheus, Space Admiral Ors, Xbox Mike 29, Rabid Raccoon, Regis Stella the Brony Pirate, Ribloid, Rustbelt Kid, Sea Leg Sam, Shoe Daddy 13, Scamelt 666, Tales of the Sea, The Demon Jester, Tommy D, DN Professor, Wailing Witch, Big Bad Pad, Mina Fairy, Hager Owl, Jeff H, Captain Duckweed, Evil Martha, Peter Miller, Rooski Doo, Thor Von Blitz, Luke Lore the Insipid Ghost, and Zam Wow. Thank you all so much for the love, the support. It really does mean the world to me that you help do so, because it does actually take care of a lot of the payments and stuff that come with the podcast. So thank you, everyone. And I hope you have a good rest of your week. With that, let's get into it. First on today's docket, are we back? Is Sea of Thieves back? I don't know about you all, but I had a fantastic weekend engrossing myself in the orb stream. Holy cow. Now, if you guys don't know, there were 7 videos that came out that were prophecies, and the prophecies that came as a result of the stream were great. Everything that we've been talking about, everything that I've been talking about for years at this point, have all kind of teased that it is something that is going to come to fruition. And I'm really excited about that, because genuinely, I think that the game does its best when adventure is being driven by story, and to not have story just lobs you into every other game that is just a multiplayer game. It's the story, it's the characters, in my opinion, that many people may not care about, but because you have a driving narrative within the game, not only does that help kind of breed creativity when it comes to adding new stuff to the game, like we'll be getting into the patch notes. We'll be talking about all the new stuff that's come in with this season, and we'll actually have some stuff to look forward to in the future. And I'm really genuinely excited about this, because it's not too often that Rare gets to do these orb streams anymore. This is the first time it's been back in a while, and I'm genuinely excited. I'm actually looking forward to seeing what 2026 is going to have in store. I think that Rare has listened to the feedback. They've listened to the community. They understand that they really kind of dropped the ball, that they, for whatever reason, decided that they were going to focus in on certain things that I don't know if it was layoffs. I don't know if it was management, but I have to say that current leadership has done a good job at genuinely listening to player feedback, to adjusting, to trying to work towards a better goal. And they are still, I'm not going to absolve them of any sins, because I do think that, them having to delay season 18 is a black mark on the record as far as like, hey, you guys want to do this thing where you say that you're going to really kind of cater to this new development process. But if it's not going to work, then we're kind of in the same boat that we have been. So, jury is still going to be out as far as that's concerned. But the really cool thing about the orb stream, which if you guys were away, which I don't blame you because it is literally the middle of December right now, folks are making trips. They're planning outings with friends. They are working towards getting gifts for loved ones and friends. They are going to be busy. So I'm not surprised if people did not know or have time or interest, given the last, I don't know, maybe 2 years of Sea of Thieves, that they have not really like been focused in on like what's been going on with the story or with Rare as far as the company goes. So it was nice to have the orb stream. The last 48 hours have been a whirlwind. Shout out to Status Hidden, who is one of the people that works on the orb streams. They've been doing a lot of that stuff for years, actually. But shout out to them for helping kind of provide a lot of insight to what's going on with the stream in our Discord. It was really, really nice of them to kind of give us some heads up on stuff, to kind of clarify some things that they didn't necessarily have to do. I don't even know how many Discords they're actually in. I know that I have like 6 mutual Discords with them, so there's definitely a lot of ones that they pop into. But it was really nice of them to give us some heads up on things, to let us know what's going on, to let us know like what to expect with drops, because drops were plentiful. And shout out to Godhammer, who reached out to me, asked me if we could build out a role with an opt-in feature for Orb Fanatics, for folks that wanted to be notified about it, and then gave him the opportunity to allow people to know like what's going on. So he did a fantastic job, as always, with like learning process and stuff, to kind of go through and post when the orb would go to a raid, who they were raiding, and then what the drops were and how long you had to get them, like kind of providing a general basis of information and stuff. So really great job by him, kind of making sure that folks knew what was going on and tagging everyone so that they could do that. And that was about every hour and a half that they did that over the last 2 days. So it was really, really nice to have them kind of take on that mantle and want to do that, provide everyone the information in connection with Status Hidden, to be able to kind of give us the opportunity to see all this cool stuff. So the other part of this, beyond the drops, which if you guys wanted to kind of get an idea of like what drops you might have missed out on, a lot of the Twitch drops that were there were Gilded Phoenix stuff. Not the newer stuff, but the older stuff. This was all legacy stuff, by the way, all legacy drops. But it was the Twilight Hunter content, like the ship set. It was the Gilded Phoenix clothing set, and the Eye of Reach, or no, not the Eye of Reach. The Eastern Winds Sapphire equipment set. So a lot of that was the drops that you actually had up until the very end, where the last couple of drops provided us some actual obsidian or ebon or onyx, whatever Rare has in mind for calling it. They provided some of that stuff. So the last drops that they put out were the tankard as well as the shovel that came out for that. There was issues. Folks were running into trouble actually claiming these. It's frustrating with things like that, unfortunately, because you can try on mobile, you can try on PC, but people have lives, people have day-to-day commitments and things that they have to do. They may not always get the opportunity, which is always rough. So again, thanks to Godhammer for pinging people who were like looking to try and get those drops. It was really good of them to kind of work on that as well too. And it was really just a nice thing. So each I can't remember if it was quite a while, but we got 7 prophecies. Each of the different prophecies is up on the YouTube channel. I need to actually upload the 7th one, but I've tried to go through and actually capture the transcription from them and put those as captions on the videos, and then try to record the little teaser stuff that is so like what happened, I mean, I'm doing a terrible job at this, but what happened is each prophecy would point the community to a different location to go interact with something in the game to get more lore about it. And that's all still in the game. It remains to be seen how long that will last. But you can definitely go over and actually check out some of those. I think by the time I got to the 4th prophecy, I was able to go and capture the extra little stuff that was in the game, so that you could actually read through the little notes and stuff. But obviously that stuff is going to be up on the wiki. It's going to be up on Rare Thief. I'm sure Falcor is probably going to have some videos up for it as well, as well as the Ancient Isles University. So a lot of folks were definitely going to be capturing that information if you wanted to actually go take a look and read into the lore of what's going on with the game. But needless to say, each one was fantastic. I really liked what they were doing. And I think that they've got a good idea of how they want to approach Sea of Thieves in the coming years. Now, I don't know if this is all going to happen in the next year, probably not, but I imagine that a lot of this is kind of where they see the story going, which is really cool. I'm glad that we're finally getting some kind of finishing remarks to some of the loose threads that we had quite a while ago. And they're changing some stuff, but you know what? It's one of those things like, yes, technically some of this is being retconned, but some of it's also just stuff that they could, if they've got a better story, just write the better story. And, you know, there's going to be discrepancies and stuff, but I really appreciate that the way they're going about this, because it genuinely felt like the Monkey Island story threw a wrench into the adventure works that was pumping out narrative on a regular cadence. And this new seasonal development process that they have, where they're bringing in 3 acts. The first act is fairly introductory. It's fairly simple. You go in, you learn a little bit about what's going on for the season. The second act will bring in that event. And then the third act will go in and revamp something that's old to kind of, you know, revitalize stuff that's still in the game that needs some attention and some time to it. So I really, really appreciated the idea behind that. It still remains to be seen if they'll be able to hold that cadence for more than, you know, a year at this point, but we'll hopefully cross our fingers that this is the way to kind of go about things. But they have teased quite a bit about what's going to happen between the Pirate Lord and Flameheart. They've teased quite a bit about what's going on with the smugglers. There's a lot that's connected up to not only Bell, but Pendragon, the Dark Brethren, as well as the Grand Maritime Union and the Sovereigns. So they've really kind of addressed, I think, what a lot of fans of the lore appreciate about this game is that we have multiple factions that are all kind of like at the starting line, and we're just waiting for the gun to be fired so that they can all jump into the race. And at this point, it definitely feels like things have been stagnant. Like the Reapers have been working towards stuff. Hunter's Call has had like a little bit of a bump as far as like what's going on with them and the Ancient Megs. And we've had like teases, but everything in the last year has been very subtle, extremely subtle to the point where I would argue that a lot of folks that listen to this podcast, especially for the stories about the lore and stuff, would agree that there hasn't really been story, even though there has technically been story. And a lot of that has actually come in with the revamp to Reapers and the revamp to Hunter's Call. Now, I know that the smugglers left a little bit of a dip in a lull of content as far as like in interesting stuff to do. But I do appreciate that they are looking to do something unique that is not just what they've already done, which is bring in another antagonistic group of people into the Sea of Thieves. Now, my main issue with this is that the smugglers are not just the bilge rats, where I feel they should just be the bilge rats. And I don't quite understand why smugglers was so important for them that they needed to revitalize another group of people outside of what we've currently got, because bilge rats are you've got Lorena and you've got Duke, and Duke is now part of the Dark Brethren, but he's also part of the where he was part of the Dark Brethren. He's now part of the smugglers, and it feels like one of those situations where we could have just had them be bilge rats. And I think that the bilge rats would have been a better way to push the familiarity of people in Sea of Thieves, so that folks are like, oh, Duke, yeah, bilge rats. Oh, okay, I know this. I understand this. As opposed to smugglers, which felt very kind of out of left field, which is a weird baseball term. And I'm glad that, we're at least getting these prophecies. The prophecies are fantastic. The first one, I'm actually trying to remember because it's been so long since the first one. The first one dealt around something that was called the Mind of Fire. The second one was called the War of the Flame, which was actually something that's going to tie into the Pirate Lord and Flameheart, which will be interesting. Then you've got the Prison of Glass, which is actually a big kind of delve into the orb itself, which is kind of cool, or at least the orbs themselves, because we've had multiple orbs at this point. Then the Power of the Shroud was the fourth prophecy, and that actually was really cool to talk about. Things called like the Glimmerfish, dealt with Bell, dealt with how the ancients traversed around the world dealing with the Shroud, and actually kind of gave a little bit of a tease into what was going to happen in the future with the Grand Maritime Union. Then we've got the fifth prophecy, which actually is about Pendragon being marooned, which is a great kind of like, hey, remember that like player choice thing we did a while ago where Pendragon got trapped in a painting in the Sea of the Damned? Yeah, what happened with that? So that is now actually been kind of talked about. They're actually having story related to him and actually getting that back in. Then they've got the sixth one, which is called Wand of the Widow, which is kind of awesome because it effectively foretells the future of what's going to happen with the Dark Brethren court. And then the Orb's Identity Revealed, which is, I'll let you go listen to that because it's one that I need to put up on YouTube, but I'll toss that one up there if you're curious about that one. So having 7 prophecies over the last couple of 48 hours at this point, 20 minutes worth of content, but so much of it was designed to give you the general timeline of what the story is going to be like in Sea of Thieves. And I'm here for it. I think that they're going and actually addressing the fact that we have a ton of characters who literally have no background story. They're just characters in the world that have been characters in the world that we know absolutely nothing about. That's nothing that's really explained. We've been introduced to theories of people in the Sea of Thieves that have not really had any presence or kind of influence. It's just been, flavor text on stuff. So it's fantastic to actually get, like a little more story or knowledge around what the heck is going on. Because for folks that have been playing the game that have not been paying attention to the story, we've been getting these orbs and digging up these coffins for reasons with the Reapers that just don't really make sense. And if you're not really into that, Rare needed to do something to hold people's hands when it comes to exposition. It's not worth it to build a really fantastic story if most of the people that you're telling the story to aren't listening. Why would you read a book to someone if no one's paying attention, right? So you have to captivate them. You have to give them a reason to want to listen to that. You just talking is not going to keep ADHD people focused in. You got to put a bell, get a flashlight, something shiny, put something to keep interest involved. And sometimes that comes in the form of holding people's hands when it comes to exposition, literally grabbing them, pulling them along, saying like, hey, this is an orb. There is an ancient evil witch inside of it, the queen of the ancients that was left behind when the rest of the ancients all sailed through the shroud in the waterfall to go actually to the Sea of Tribute. Oh, the Sea of Tribute, by the way, is a fantastic place, very much like the Sea of the Damned, but created from the memories of positive stuff. It's heaven versus Sea of the Damned, which is hell. So, and Pendragon, by the way, is in hell. He can get out. He just has to remember what his ship was like. That's a thing. So there's lots of stuff that is needing to be parsed down. There's a lot of teases, but they did a fantastic job of just coming straight out and explaining what is going on. Who are these characters? There are 9 sanctuaries in Sea of Thieves that are all temples that were ways for people to learn and understand like how to use the spell of binding, which the spell of binding ended up becoming the skeleton curse. Because what was a blessing? They used to create these eternal guardians, and the eternal guardians were souls that were bound to armor. And then they learned how to transfer the soul to bones so that you could never die. You had to drink the chalice and stuff. There's all this stuff that has kind of been in Sea of Thieves that they've kind of like said like, oh, this is connected to that. But they've always done it in such a very secondhand way that for once it was nice that they put up the orb stream and said, hey, instead of us giving you vague descriptions of what's going to happen, we're just going to be very blunt about what you can expect. And we hope that you like it. And to be perfectly frank, from my perspective, I think it's fantastic. I think it's great. I can't wait for the war between the Pirate Lord and Flameheart. I can't wait for when that war happens, that the GMU comes into Sea of Thieves and tries to take over. And I can't wait for Wanda, the Warsmith, to release the Queen of the Ancients, who is banished and trapped into the orb, to be released. And I can't wait to find out if Wanda will end up becoming the Widow and their souls will, blend together or whatever happens. There's still a lot of unfinished business, though. There's still a ton of unfinished business in the game that I don't think we'll ever get answers to. Like, I don't think we'll ever get the answer about whatever happened to the cure for the curse, the skeleton curse. I don't think we'll ever find out about that. I don't think we'll ever get the opportunity to truly address like some of the issues as far as like some of the adventures that had loose threads that never got tied up. Stuff like that. I don't think that we're ever going to really get the answers on, but Rare is trying to retcon some of this stuff so that they can have a straightforward story to tell, as opposed to we're going to give you teases and hints about certain things, and there's going to be some weird stuff going on, but we're never going to give you the full story. It's always just going to be this nebulous, like little pieces of paper on a cork board that you have to like tie strings to try and make the connections, which is not, it's fun for some people. You can still do that in some ways. Like this orb stream was a way to do it, but there are a lot of people who don't have time or care to dig into the story to the point where they feel like they're like, I'm not going to invest my time. Just tell me what the story is and stop being aloof about it, because that's not going to garner interest. That's just going to frustrate me to the point where I don't care. Or I'm going to wait for somebody to make a video so that I can just watch the 10-minute video to understand it, as opposed to trying to figure out what all of this means and keep track of everything and start keeping notes on all. Like, I don't have time to do that. I don't care to do that. I just want the 10-minute video explaining the lore. Thank you very much. And they kind of did that. They kind of did that with this. Now, there's a lot of nebulous stuff. I'm not going to say that there isn't, but the intent of the orb stream was kind of their way of giving us a straightforward story in a whimsical way. We'll say whimsy. So I'm glad that they did this, because it gives lore fans a lot to chew on for the next year to kind of see where things go, how things are working, and kind of explain a lot of the stuff that, to be perfectly frank, has been kind of like, I don't know what you're talking about, and I don't remember any of this. So if they did have that, it was so tucked into the crevices and between the lines of little journals spread out through the world over the last couple of years that I just need you to be blunt about it. Thank you. So I'm glad they had this. But the orb stream, a lot of folks, I will say, if you have not gotten your drops and you were present and you should have gotten them, They said that it may take 24 to 48 hours. Definitely put in a ticket if there's one that you missed out on, that you know that you were present for, and let them know like what it was so that they can actually get that sent out to you. Because I know a lot of folks like the Onyx Tankard and the Onyx Shovel were part of the Chips Ahoy stuff, like way back in the first or second year. So not a lot of people really got access to that stuff. So, and a lot of people definitely would like to have it. I know I went through pretty much everything and checked to see like, okay, do I need any of this? And thankfully I didn't need any of this. But then again, I've also been watching religiously for a lot of this stuff for years at this point. So I'm not surprised. I've put in the work, but that's also fine. I'm also okay with that. It was also really great that they went and raided a whole bunch of the Bilge Rats in partners throughout the entire weekend. Now there's a lot of people that they could have raided, and it was really good to see a lot of folks getting attention, to the point where there are definitely a few folks that are not used to having 4,000 people talking in chat. Even with slow mode, it still goes very fast. You learn very quickly that there's a reason why big streamers really don't pick out chat too much. They pick out like 1 or 2 comments and they comment on that, and the rest is just constant discussion. And unless you get everyone to agree to say the same thing, it is very rare for streamers who have large groups of like community chatters to be able to even understand or have a conversation. You can't have a conversation when 40,000 people are talking in chat. That is not something that can happen. You're going to be entertaining for what you're there for, and that's it. When you have 75 people and 30 of them are talking, a little bit easier to keep up with stuff. But all in all, I have to shout out to Rare. This was a fantastic stream. It was a fantastic job of doing the orb stream. Very welcome in the community. Very, very much felt like old school Rare, which is exactly the type of thing that I think that we need to have. We need to have Rare go back to what they used to do. Celebrate the holidays with Grogmanay and Festival of Giving and Festival of the Damned. Have these opportunities where you can have like charity events, have things like the orb stream that are going to reveal stuff that's coming in the future. The production involved with this is so intrinsic to keeping the community cohesive, because otherwise you start running into the scenario where people are playing the game and then people are streaming and then people are keeping up with the lore, but nobody's really coming together. And for a game that feels like that is the intent at its heart, it is kind of a shame that Rare doesn't try to do more like that. Like, to be perfectly honest, if I were Rare, if I was part of the team that handles the Twitch community members, the streamers, like the Bilge Rat team or the Next Wave or the partners and stuff like that, I'd probably have days throughout the week where we would be doing stuff like the orbs, where and not necessarily something that was like, we're going to be giving away drops, because I do think that is a huge part of why everyone was tuning in. But I would most definitely have partners and Bilge Rats and random people that, you watch, you keep note, you take down names, and you say like, okay, these people would be good to feature on the Sea of Thieves channel, and actually give them a spotlight, give them a reason to be checked out, so that you do start running into this situation where streamers are actually getting the benefits of Rare's reach to actually showcase like, hey, this person might be worth checking out. They may be worth your time to actually go invest in spending, your viewing hours, time as your life, watching this person, because hopefully what it's doing is it's entertaining you. It's giving you a sense of community. You find other people to play with and you just enjoy it. Now we'll have to see how things are going, because right now the SOT Rare channel is down. The stream is over, and it's just back to the folks that are playing the game on a regular basis. And I think it was very interesting. It was very interesting and very telling that a lot of the large streamers, and this is a very weird kind of like offshoot, but a lot of the large streamers weren't actually playing too much in the last few days. Now, this may have something to do with what's going on with their lives, other games that they're playing, but we do have the support a streamer thing that is going on. That's kicking up tomorrow, and that is going to be for everyone. So it's nice to know that, they are planning to have the support a streamer go live, and I'm glad that they opened it up. Now, this was something I did not anticipate them actually opening this up to everyone. I genuinely thought that they had set up the support a streamer thing going live on the 15th to be just for partners, but that is not the case. They've actually changed it so that if you want to support a streamer to gift 3 subs to get the max amount of drops that you can get, then you'll actually be able to do so to any streamer during this time, which I seriously really do think that was the best way to go about this. Now, that is going on from the 15th of December to January 2nd. So you have a couple weeks. You can support any streamer. The intent here is that if you want to get the Amethyst Mercenary ship cosmetics, you only have to give 2 qualifying subscriptions to earn that. If you gift 3 subs, you will then be able to get the Ebon double barrel pistol. Now, I know you're already thinking, I never use the Ebon pistol, or I never use the double barrel pistol. It's a terrible weapon. Why should I bother? Hear me out. You may want to have this just for the sake of having this, because the Ebon, Onyx, Obsidian, Black Sea Dog set is one that is the most coveted. It's the reason why a lot of folks have actually been donating to the Treasures of Hope charity to be able to get the Onyx. I think they called it the Ebon throwing knife, actually, now that I think about it, which actually worked perfectly, by the way. If you bought the code, if you donated and then held on to the code to get the 10 levels of renown, that worked perfectly. I was able to log in on Thursday and I put in the code and I instantly got my 10 levels. I'm now up to level 50 on my season pass. I've got my Duke tattoo, which is amazing, that we're actually getting that. And it's working as intended, which I'm glad to hear. If you're not getting the emails for that, please reach out to support at treasuresofhope.com, I think is the email address. Correct me if I'm wrong. But going back to the support a streamer stuff, it'll be very interesting to see how many streamers are going to be popping in during this support a streamer timeframe, because not too many of the big ones were actually jumping in during the orb stream, which is interesting because there were quite a few people that got raided by the orb stream and then subsequently got a lot of subscriptions, like a lot of people. Like there were some whales out there dropping hundreds of thousands of subscriptions as gifts for folks that got raided. Now, I don't know if those were rare employees. They could have been Microsoft employees. It could have been Phil Spencer on an alternate account. They could be charging back those subscriptions. Who knows? But the mentality behind it, the earnest attempt to garner goodwill in the community was felt. And I think that at the end of the day is one of the best things that Rare can do when it comes to being community management. They should be doing this kind of thing more frequently, making people feel like they are special because you have an audience, you rally the audience, and then you do something with that audience that is productive towards other people other than yourself, other than selling the game. And I think that is the intent of what I would expect out of the community management team. If I was like looking at what needed to be done, I'd be looking at where are the people that are doing the best for the community and how can we continue to celebrate them? Not to say that Rare doesn't, because they do, but I think there's always opportunities, right? All right, with all of that being said, let's get into the next topic today, which is actually going to be the release notes. So this is the beginning of season 18, and we've gotten a chance to really kind of dive into it at this point and really kind of see how things are going to play out. I spent quite a bit of time this weekend playing, and I would say that If not for the 10 levels that I got thanks to the charity donation, I'd probably be at 40 right now, which is, we're looking at almost halfway done. I'm technically halfway done with my season pass, which again just goes to show, like, hey, you know what, if you're working towards stuff, if you're playing with folks and getting achievements done and working on commendations and stuff, you can burn through the season pass fairly easily. It's not too bad. But we have got the whole Secrets of the Banished stuff, which is actually, it's nice that we're getting more into the actual lore of the ancients, like the people that were here before we arrived, before Ramsey arrived in the Sea of Thieves with his crew and ended up bringing more people to the Sea of Thieves. It was all the ancients, and there was a lot of story and stuff that went on there, and the orb actually goes into quite a bit of that. Now I'm pretty happy with that, to be perfectly honest. I'm happy that we actually have the chance to learn more about what happened with the power swings and the choices that were made by a lot of the people in the ancients time frame. Like, there was a whole nomadic race and stuff like that. There's things to learn as far as like the royalty that happened, right? But we're getting into the Secrets of the Banished because that's what Flameheart's been working on. He has been gathering the orbs. He's been digging up skeletons, the sarcophagi of the ancients, and trying to learn more about what's going on with them. Now what we've kind of discovered is that pirates can actually encounter one of the new enemies in the game, the Eternal Guard, who were created as the army to the Widow, who was the queen of the ancients back in the day. And it's kind of cool that they have these kind of new threats out in the world. You can find them by looking for giant purple sarcophagi around the world. They are around the world, so you just have to go to some of the bigger islands. Predominantly, they're going to be out in the actual roar, but the reason that they're bringing them more to other islands is that they want to draw attention to them, have people discover that, and then find the key, or get the key, and then bring the key to one of the sanctuaries in the Devil's Roar, which there's three of them. There's the Waterfall, I believe, the Flame, and the Widow. I believe are the name of the three. At least that's what the symbols are above them. But they're on smaller islands, and the caches inside are really good. The amount of treasure that you can get in there is fantastic. But for all intents and purposes, the guards are going to be the way to kind of kick these off. And I've been doing a lot of testing with some of these, both on high seas and safer seas, to see like how this is actually going to play out. And the amount of the arsenal that they come with is fairly good. I actually like the way that these are designed. There's 4 different attacks and 1 summon ability that you need to be aware of when going into the fights with these Eternal Guards. The first attack is one of the attacks is probably the most straightforward. He or she, actually, now that I think about it, there's actually both he and she guards out there. They will turn invisible, meaning that they are not invisible, but they will become like transparent in the shade form, and they will zip around the island, typically moving to a new location. If they move up close to you, typically what they'll do is they'll come out of their phase and they'll throw a poison bomb into the ground, which will leave a radius of gas that will be like a poison gas, and that will damage you. There's a nice little new effect to it. It's not just a purple hue, but it actually shows like, the veins in your eyes are bulging. You can see them as you're poisoned, and you can't really do anything about it. You just have to get out of the cloud of gas to kind of get away from that, so you don't die as a result. Not worth sticking in. The other attack is actually paired up with 2 different ammo types for the blowpipe. And I appreciate that they actually call these out. Like the guards will actually say like what attack they're about to do most of the time, and that just kind of helps give you an idea. But there is a black powder dart and then a venom dart that they will shoot. The venom dart, you can't really do anything about. If you get hit, then you get hit. My best recommendation is to line of sight or break line of sight to these so that they hit the tree, they hit a post, they hit a rock, they hit a skeleton that you dug up, one of the bone and blade skeletons, the nerds. You dig up a nerd, you can use them to break the line of sight. They'll take the hit. That way you can avoid that damage. And the black powder keg one, that is one that is I'm still testing, but I've had relatively good success with fighting them near a beach and taking a bucket of water and dousing yourself or jumping into the water and submerging yourself when you get hit by a black powder dart. And you should see it. It should like be something that looks like it's below at the bottom of your screen, indicating that it's like stuck in you. You can knock out the fuse on that. The most reliable way to do so is to jump into the water and actually like submerge yourself completely till it goes out. But I've been testing more and more, tossing a bucket of water on yourself. The other ability that they'll do is actually a spear. They will throw a spear. Now, I have had mixed results on this. And I've tried to science it out a little bit more. What he'll do is what they will do is they will throw a hunting spear that will do a rather significant amount of damage to you. It's to the point where if you were attacking other things or you had less than 100% health, chances are this would be enough to actually kill you. I would say that it takes somewhere around like the 60 to 70% of your health out in one hit, which is pretty impressive for a boss. You know, most bosses generally don't hit that hard unless you're right up on them. I remember skeleton lords used to be nefarious when it came to the hip fire blunderbuss to the face to one shot you. That was always frustrating. They actually ended up taking that out in my experience. But the spear itself is pretty impressive as far as an attack. And I appreciate that they telegraph it as well too. There's two attacks that they'll do that will involve the spear. One is actually throwing it, in which case they will telegraph that they're doing this quite a while, and they actually announce it as well. So you'll have an opportunity to actually find something to hide behind, whether it be a nerd, whether it be a tree, post, rock, things like that. Other crewmates, that works as well too. The thing that I've been messing around with is actually the crouch feature. This is not something that works 100% of the time, but it is something that works consistently enough that if I'm within a short to medium range from the Eternal Guard, I can crouch around the time that they get ready to throw the spear, and they will throw it over me. And there's even a little animation hitch from when you can tell they're locked onto you to when they throw it over you. And I don't know if the animation hitch is something. It's like a twitch, like they literally twitch and they kind of shift a little bit. You can see when the aiming disconnects from automatically hitting you to throwing it over you. This has not worked 100% of the time. There's been times where I've crouched far away early enough that he will still throw a spear at me. In one case that I was fighting one, he hit me twice after I was testing it out. So the further away you were, it seemed like maybe that maybe contributed to being hit while crouched or not. It may have also been an instance where when I was fighting them that I crouched too early and they were already locked on, or that it didn't register the crouch. It's hard to say, but that's something that I've been playing around with. So if this is something that you want to test out as well too, I would highly recommend it. Because in most instances where I have been fighting an Eternal Guard, there's been more times where I've been able to avoid the damage without having to hide behind something, just by crouching shortly before they throw the spear, to where when I wasn't throwing the spear and I wasn't crouching and I was getting nailed every single time, unless it was being thrown at somebody else. So feel free to do your own testing on that. You know, take the number of times they throw it versus the number of times you crouch and how many times they they hit versus don't hit, find out what the percentage is for that, and then see if it's better than if you didn't crouch at all. The other ability outside of the 2 darts from the blowpipe, the spear and the poison bomb, that's an area of effect where they appear, is the ability to summon ancient skeletons. Not the ancient skeletons that have the doubloons, but just regular gold ancient skeletons that you would find in the vaults for the skeleton camps. And those have been pretty kind of standard. You know, you would expect them to be your bare minimum as far as like a skeleton AI works. So nothing too major there. They'll typically summon somewhere between, I think, 3 to 6 skeletons, depending on crew size, potentially. Haven't really got to test out that much, but consistently somewhere between 4 and 5, I would say. So those are all of the abilities. The fact that the statue, or not the fact that the guardian actually phases in and out has made this fight a little more interesting, because it's not just a giant bullet sponge that is just kind of slowly lumbering around with the occasional leap and throwing fireballs or shooting at you with a gun. There's actually positioning involved and thought that has to go into make sure that you're tracking where this enemy is, and they still do have a pretty decent health pool. The really cool thing about this is that for the first time, I think outside of maybe an Ashen Lord, if you want to take the phasing into account when they change phases, you really have never had an opportunity to see what a boss's health pool is. Now with the Eternal Guard, they've actually gone in, and the armor that they wear, where their soul is bound to that armor, will start to crack and actually display damage. It starts off with like shoulders. It'll move to the leg or the leg parts. I can't remember what they're called. There's a word for them. And then it'll eventually just kind of move to the entire body. When you get to the point where you actually kill the boss, all of their armor should be cracked to the point where it is gleaming with light that is shining through all of the crevices in that armor. And I like that they have tried to give a secondary means of information while actually fighting it. If you notice it, then it's a nice way to kind of keep track of how far you are within the fight, how much damage you have to put in. Stuff like that is stuff that I see in other games that really does kind of take into account that there's a visual language being built into the information that they want to supply. It just doesn't always translate to situations where people who without sight or have poor sight are able to really kind of like hone in on that. But it is a way for them to kind of give you a health bar without just putting a health bar over the actual enemy, which is not a thing I really want in Sea of Thieves. I like the immersive nature of that. I'm not a huge fan of having the health pool in other games either, but it is one of those things. It just depends on the type of game that it is. But I really like what they've done. I think that the fight is fun. I think that it's challenging to an extent. I don't think that this is the hardest thing in the world. You just have to kind of learn the moves, understand where positioning is going to be an integral. Standing near water and standing near things that you can hide behind are really going to determine just how much of a pain this fight is going to be. So take that advice as much as you want. You know, if it works out for you, great. If not, or if you come up with something better, feel free to always share in the Discord, because it's always nice to have that pool of knowledge growing as we kind of like work out the best way to kind of go about this. At the end of the day, I think it would be interesting to kind of see how this works with just taking a ship with a cannon as well, too, because I think that at a certain point, you could effectively use your cannons to help with taking out these things a little bit faster. Once you actually defeat this guy, the thing that I have yet to remember that I've been hit with every single time is that there's a powerful shockwave when they explode. And they even do this at the beginning of the fight as well, too. Sometimes they'll actually do like an explosion at the beginning of when you release or you open the sarcophagi. They'll do an explosion then as well, too. And it's not so much an explosion, it's just like a concussive thing of air that just, it'll blow up powder kegs, I found out. And it's cool. I like it. It's one of those, like, you always kind of rush in to go kill or to go pick up the loot from, whatever it is that you just killed. In this case, that is a bad idea. As soon as you know that you've killed it, you're going to want to actually turn and run away, because otherwise it's going to turn into an atom bomb, and then you're going to die, and you're going to have to go back to the ferry, and the ferryman's going to be like, you're an idiot. And all you can really say is, can I please make sure that I go through the door this time? Say your thank yous and then head back to your ship. But I really do like the fight overall. I think that the design was interesting. I think that the design was a good way to introduce a new boss fight. These are emergent currently in the game, that you just kind of have to happen upon them. I think while I was sailing yesterday or the day before, some really good advice was to shoot over an island and look for a giant purple glow, which is very apt. Once you see the purple glow, it's very apparent when shooting over islands. So if you are trying to find an island that has one of these to be able to fight them, best thing to do is just take a cannon ride and take a look and see if you can see anything. You're not always going to be able to notice it. So maybe 1 or 2 trips, or just trust that the first one was accurate and then move over to the next major island. These are only going to be on major islands, and they will typically be near areas where there's ammo chests, as well as a couple barrels for some food as well too. But I would recommend taking yourself some food as well. This is definitely going to be a fight, especially with the venom, that there's not any way to really mitigate the damage outside of line of sighting it all the time, which is tough, because then you're losing time on the boss to damage them. So you'll probably need to eat through some of that, and having some meat to get a meat shield or a meat ring is going to benefit you, because at certain points you're going to be able to avoid getting hit and just let that passive regen pop in, given the nature of the fights. But generally, as soon as they start to stomp the ground with their spear, they will start to summon the skeletons. That's typically the point where I'll actually go in and start using my sword to really kind of lay in some damage. Blowpipes are still effective as well too. Throwing a bunch of blowpipes with the black powder dart on the Guardian as they are spawning the skeletons is kind of an easier way to knock out the wave of skeletons as well too. But that's about it as far as the advice I can really give for the Eternal Guardians. Love them so far. I think they're a lot of fun. They'll probably get old hat in the future, but for the time being, I've actually really appreciated the changes to the sandbox as far as enemy types go. Next on today's docket, let's talk about the Sanctuaries of the Banished. These were vaults that were buried with a bunch of treasure in them that were actually from the banished ancients that were left behind after the other ancients all took the sails or the trip through the veil into the Sea of Tribute, which I've actually been hearing is there's a Sea of Truth as well too. But all of it is effectively like whatever your memories are. The best memories create the best paradise. The worst memories create the most painful stuff. Or at least just effectively make you feel like a lost soul, which kind of speaks to Bell for certain things that I won't get into. So Sanctuaries of the Banished. The smugglers have excavated. Yeah, excavated. I was almost reading that wrong. 3 sanctuaries in the Devil's Roar. These ancient structures can be found hidden beneath Cinder Islet, which is the Widow, Flame's End, which I believe is the flame one. Yeah. And then Brimstone Rock, which is the waterfall. And I think the brimstone is intended to suggest the waterfall nature of being able to walk through the pirate legend waterfall, which is actually called the Emerald Waterfall, as it is tied to how you get into the Veil without needing a Veilstone. And each site has its own little marker. So if you do happen to take out an Eternal Guardian and you're not quite sure where to take one of these sanctuaries, take a look on the map and you will see that there is a little triangle item or like icon beneath those 3 islands. And that will be kind of like the indicator, similar to how Reapers has its Reaper marks, smugglers have the smuggler marks, outposts have theirs. So if you're going to a skeleton camp, it's got the little flame heart symbol. If you're going to a smuggler, it'd have the little smuggler symbol on the map, just as a kind of little cheat sheet or a legend to let you know like where you should be taking these keys. The banished keys, or banished keys. You can open up the little treasuries inside, and the ancient treasuries inside have a slew of different types of treasure. A lot of it is going to be for each of the different trade companies, aside from Athena's Fortune. I don't know if we'll ever get anything that's Athena's Fortune or for Reaper, but for the time being, you can get chests of tribute, which look like the vault chests of tribute, but they're purple, for the banished, and then you've got Merchant Alliance, Hunter's Call, and Order of Souls. They've got skulls, a little trinket, and technically 2 trinkets. And they'll all have their own little chests, their own little ancient chests for them. Included in there is actually going to be a tablet, a little half tablet. Now, the tablet itself is not something that is like a key or anything you have to worry about. It is literally just a piece of treasure. You can take that to the smugglers, or you can turn it in wherever you want. But there is a commendation to actually turn in a handful of those over to the smugglers. So I would recommend taking advantage of one of the 2 that are actually in the game in the Devil's Roar now, and actually utilizing them to do that. I believe one is on Ruby's Fall, and I think the other one is on, I can never remember which is which. I think it's Fetcher's Rest, but it's either Fetcher's or Flintlock. The new smuggler stuff out there is nice. You can do little smuggler runs out there and whatnot. There's actually a smuggler route out in the Roar right now. Who knows how profitable that is, if it's any different. I have not gotten a chance to actually do one of those to see how that loot looks, but that is something I'll probably be playing around with in the future. Other things you can kind of do in the vault itself, though, is actually going to be the new tridents, which are purple tridents, and they're called the Trident of the Banished. It's a corrupted weapon. It is an enhanced version of the regular trident and actually inflicts poisonous damage. These things are actually pretty good. The small version, the tier 1 bubble, can be charged quickly and releases a fast moving shot that deals both direct damage and lasting poison effects. The medium sized bubble deals greater damage than the Trident of Dark Tides, which is the green version, or the bubble stick, Disney stick. With a larger radius, also poisoning enemies in the area. And then the largest bubble deals high damage and poison. However, it moves very slowly when fired, allowing pirates to follow up with a well-aimed shot to detonate it. And so if you guys want to play around with that, it actually bounces as well. And it actually has enough force that it will rock a boat if it hits the ship and explodes. I don't know that it actually does damage to the ship. I haven't seen that yet, but it does actually rock it, or make it shift. So the new tridents are pretty nice in there. I was messing around with one, and I was able to use 2 tier 1 small bubbles and 2-shot a sapphire mermaid statue. So I was pretty surprised by that, and I actually tried out on a couple of them as well too. So you get a couple of those within each of the different vaults. And I think the name that I've been liking the most is Pixie Stick for these, because they're purple. And I don't know, it's like we've got Disney sticks. This is a Pixie Stick. But I'll be interested to see what the community decides on as far as the name goes, but I do like Pixie Stick so far. And that is effectively everything that you can get in the Roar, with one exception, or not in the Roar, in the Sanctuaries, with one exception. And that is actually to do with the Ashen Keys. And I don't know necessarily why it's the Ashen Keys that are so important to this, because it feels like something that, it's the Roar, but I wasn't aware that Ashen Keys were something that were being used during the time of the Ancients. So I'm not really sure how that all came about, but if you find yourself working on the commendations. I believe there are some where you need to actually use ashen keys to unlock smaller compartments within each vault. There should be at least 2. So you'll need to have 2 keys, which you can fish up. Don't forget, you can actually fish up those. If you're not using any bait on your fishing hook, you can get treacherous plunder, you can get planks, or you can get ashen keys. So you can most definitely get these without having to find an ashen guardian. I have seen more ashen guardians than I'm used to on islands, but I don't know if they've specifically ramped those up to make it easier to get the keys, since we no longer have the voyage to actually dig up a key anymore. But you will need to unlock a certain number of those for commendations. Inside, you'll find a hefty amount of treasure as well too. Most of those are actually going to be gems, which are fantastic if you're looking to bump up a specific reputation that you're still working on. Like if you still need Hunter's Call, emissary or levels, having a lot of gems is a fantastic way to bump those up. So keep an eye out for those. If you guys are working on like stacking them, or you just, you're looking to get the most out of your sanctuary, I would highly recommend fishing up a couple ashen keys, keeping them on your person so that when you do actually open up the vault, you can open up those side compartments and get the additional gold inside there. I would say most of these are going to be at least probably around 100,000 gold easy. I would say, just based on, if you're running a grade 5 flag, which in this case, honestly, Guild and Reaper are going to be good. Guild, in my opinion, better because you can turn into sovereigns and get the entire credit towards all of the loot, since it is broken up amongst Hunter's Call, Merchant, Order of Souls, and Gold Hoarder. If you run gold, or if you run a guild flag, you're going to be able to take advantage of the grade 5 across the board. Whereas if you run Reapers, you will still have to sail out to Reaper's hideout from the Roar with all of your treasure and then go and actually turn it in. So take advantage of the sovereigns if you have a guild ship. Take advantage of the guild flag if you're running out in the Devil's Roar specifically, so that you can go over to Tomorrow's Peak Outpost, turn in all your treasure at the sovereign's tent, and take, get the full amount of guild emissary value out of all the treasure that you turn in. Next up on today's docket, let's talk about the Devil's Roar in general, because I have seen some feedback that people feel like for fun, certain, I can't keep going with that. The Devil's Roar necessarily should be the main focus, and they haven't really done enough to really kind of revitalize the Roar. That is going to have to be reserved. I'm going to reserve my judgment till we see the full kind of spread of what's going on with the Devil's Roar, because we're less than a week in on the season, and all we really have are the Eternal Guardians and Sanctuaries at the moment. We do not know what's going on with Molten Sands, which we know is the event aspect of Act 2, or the Act 3 with the addition to skeleton camps, I think, or no, was it fortresses? I think it was fortresses. Yeah, I think Flameheart's adding fortresses out into the Devil's Roar. So that stuff is kind of like on the, let's see how this plays out in the long term before casting judgment on whether or not we feel like the Roar was properly revitalized. Because at this point, I don't think I would be able to say that it has. But that's also not taking into account that we haven't seen the full spectrum of what they're going to be doing with the Roar. But to at least address what we have now, crews venturing out into the Devil's Roar will actually earn a bonus on cashing in loot during season 18 with boosted gold and reputation, depending on the representative. So if you're running guild, you'll get a boost in gold and rep for the guild during season 18. Same thing if you're running an emissary for the gold hoarders and you turn in gold hoarder loot, you will get a boost in gold and reputation from them. So just be advised, like, plan out your sessions, what you want to focus on. You will get loot from the sanctuaries. It's going to be for all of the trade companies, but if you're specifically working on one particular one to get your rings or get your guild level up, then this is going to be a good way to do that by specifically spending time out in the roar. You're also going to be able to find a lot more chests of rage. This is something that they've ramped up as a result of making it easier to be able to get some of the commendations that are currently being introduced. Outside of that, I'm not sure why else they would do this, but there is definitely a commendation to deal damage to skeletons during the fight of an Eternal Guard with the Chest of Rage. You also have to damage an Eternal Guardian with a black powder keg as well too. So if you guys, and that's kind of tough. That's one where I would say best thing to do is if you have one of the Black Betties, wait until he starts to do the summon for the skeletons, because that's the longest time he's going to be unfazed, and then go in there and instead of waiting for the 10-second timer, just go in there and start swiping at the keg once you drop it at their feet to get it to explode, because it's going to take at least a few hits before it explodes. And yeah, you're going to be killing yourself, but you'll at least feel good about the commendation procking while you hit the fairy. So at least you'll have that knocked out of the way. One of the other things that you want to keep an eye out for out in the roar is that they still have the reduced frequency of the volcanoes. There's a lot more time now before when the volcano starts to erupt and when it actually starts to become dangerous. They also last less time, and the geysers are going to be less aggressive when it comes to spawning underneath you. But you will still need to want to pay attention to that. On top of that, they've also made the Morrow's Peak outpost as a potential starting location for crews at the beginning of a session. This is going to be based purely on first come, first serve. If you pop into a server that has already got someone near Morrow's outpost, or someone that has, it's an older server, chances are likely that you'll probably pop up at one of the other outposts. But if you, especially if you go do Safer Seas, you will always be spawning at Morrow's outpost. So just bear that in mind as well. Next on today's docket, let's talk about the sandbox balancing. This is something that we kind of expected with season 17 ending and season 18 kicking up, as they have increased the reputation and gold for things turned in while in the Devil's Roar. They've gone back and actually toned down a lot of the smuggler's influence from season 17. So a lot of the things that you were seeing on a frequent basis have now been tuned back to their pre-season 17 levels, which I appreciate. It's a way to kind of boost stuff that is focused in on season 17 or season 18, and then giving you an opportunity to go back to that state to focus on a new season and stuff. So crews should be spotting washed up rowboats that will now have an equal chance of finding any of the different types of rowboats, whether it's the Reaper ones or the arena ones or just a standard one. Harpoons and cannon rowboats are all going to be varied now, instead of just the ones that we were finding with the Reapers on the kegs on the back there. Ambushes by black powder wielding skeletons and the presence of washed up smuggler caches are now much less frequent. The glint of washed up messages in a bottle on shores now provide a range of different activities and will no longer just provide the smuggler's runs, which I appreciate. As someone who likes to go and try and get those few remaining crate voyages done, it is nice having the messages in a bottle back to normal so that I can try and cycle through some of those if possible. You will still find the coral messages as well as the smuggler messages out there. So just be aware that it'll just depend on the RNG on the spawn rate for those. Skeletons have slowed their stockpiling of Smuggler League treasures, and crews will now find a more balanced horde on board, which also means that you can't just assume that every skeleton is going to have a Black Betty on it, and that you need to be aware that if one does spawn, chances of you being able to go over and blow it up without any sort of issue is going to be less as a result of that smuggler loot being less frequent. Doesn't mean that it can't still happen, but it does mean that it should be something that is less easier to deal with. The frequency of shipwreck discoveries have been increased, and there is now an equal chance of finding regular shipwrecks as well as smuggler shipwrecks, both containing handy air bubbles throughout the ship to help pirates while exploring. Why these bubbles are not part of the Veil quest is still beyond me, especially given that you have 3 to 4 ships that you have to explore during Veil missions. Why the shipwreck bubbles are not there, very bizarre. They're in with the shipwrecks during the Megalodon voyage for Hunter's Call. They're in shipwrecks now as a baseline. They came as a result of the Tall Tales from A Pirate's Life. Very confused why the Veil is the only one that is yet to receive the air bubbles from those shipwrecks, especially just given the number of how many ships you have to go search for. What I will say, though, is, again, the grapple is instrumental in traversing underwater quicker with more ease. So I would highly recommend grabbing a grapple gun and some other weapon to go down below if you have to do those Veil missions and you do have to go do the shipwreck voyage part of it. The grapple gun should hopefully make that a lot easier. Some of the things that you can anticipate with this new update is actually going to bring in a new range of commendations that have been added to the Secrets of the Banished Reputation tab. Pirates will find these as a way to unlock, get access to new weapons from the Forsaken Ashen set, the Marked of the Widow tattoo, the Chest of Banished Tribute disguise, and the Effigy of Rage trinket and from the new Smuggler clothing set. Saltbone Elias's hook and Laughing Fox Lucia's mask are also included in these commendation rewards. So keep an eye out for that if you are wanting to get some of the new loot that is tied to completing the commendations. There's also going to be a new time-limited Act 1 deed that has been added to the seasonal menu that will earn a boost to the seasonal renown progress and a dark discovery painting once completed. There's also new Steam achievements and Xbox and PlayStation 5 trophies and achievements as well. Vanquisher of the Eternal, Explorer of Sacred Places, Broker of Banished, and Violent Violence. That's a hard thing to try and parse out. Next on today's docket, let's dive into some of the minutia around rewards and the plunder pass, as well as emissary ledgers and things to be aware of when it comes to those fortune and reaper chest stuff. So season 18 rewards and plunder pass, you have 100 new levels to go through that will give you the Spider Venom's clothing set, as well as vanity items, plus the creepy crawlers cosmetics that can be unlocked, while Pirate Legends will have access to the Warsmith's throwing knives and Duke Tribute tattoo. Having 50% of this done, I can say I really like the Spider's Venom clothing set. Some of the creepy crawler stuff kind of goes along with past Festive Legends cosmetics that we've had that they've been bringing back in time-limited fashion. There is a time limited for season 18. Players can also earn the exclusive Widow's Weave flag, hull, sails, makeup, and tattoo by heading over to the season profiles to browse the new rewards over there. And you can pick up the plunder pass to unlock most of that stuff out as well, to the Nightshade Sentry collection, including the ship set and a selection of themed clothing, all individually earned by raising your renown, that you can purchase just by getting the plunder pass for that. As usual, I recommend, wait till you have the plunder pass done, unless you absolutely want to start putting on some of those cosmetics right away. That way, at least you kind of know for sure that you were able to get the plunder pass finished up before you had to invest any money, and you still get the benefit of all the free stuff regardless. Season 18, Emissary Ledger rewards. This season, the Guild Emissary Ledgers offer the, quote, an eternal ebb and flow painting Banished Finery ornament, and the Guild of the Dark Banishment title to guilds who represent them well and performed proudly in the ledgers. So just make sure that you're getting your guild emissary level up this season. It doesn't necessarily have to be this first month, as the beginning of the month or the new season wasn't active during the beginning of the month. So you should, you'll probably have to wait till the beginning of January before the seasonal ledger kicks off to be able to get the emissary grades needed to be able to get those cosmetics. The Hunter's Call emissary ledger now offers the Living Depths flag, sails, and capstan, along with the Assailant of Ancient Quarry title. These are now available to be earned by the Hunter's representative for the emissaries as well. Next, we've got the Chest of Fortune. Chest of Fortune has been returned within the Fort of Fortune, allowing crews to earn the next grade of Fortune's favor to unlock access to the Regal Fortune fishing rod, the shovel, the pocket watch, tankard, and speaking trumpet. Kudos to those who managed to get caught up during this last season. I am so far behind that I'm not even worried about it. The Reaper chests are now back in the game. For the most part, they've always been around, but there's a new unlockable through the Reaper's Riches Commendations, and they will unlock the Regal Fortune, Hurdy-Gurdy, and Concertina. All right, let's get into some of the fixes and other stuff that is just kind of the smaller things going on with the patch notes here as we dive into this. So they did make a change to, at least in game, not necessarily on the front end. The front end of the game still has a little bit of a discrepancy on this, but they've actually changed the pirate log to be renamed to be the Reputation. And that is going to be where all of your trade companies, where all your factions, where all your tall tales, all your adventures of sea, where all your meowing kitties are. That's where all of those are going to be. Hi, Fern. What is it, sweetie? Do you need something? You just got some food. You just got food. You just got some water. Now she needs pets. This is how recording podcast does. This is why I don't do these live, by the way. This usually gets edited out. But yep. She's not going to let me have any time. Yeah. But this is where all of your reputation and stuff is going to be now under Reputation. The front end, I believe, at least at the time we're recording this, is still showing that it's Pirate's Log. So just be aware that it's a little bit of a change up. And I appreciate that they did this. I think it's more clear. I think it's more concise as far as like what you actually... Oh, now the food machine's going off. This is the best time to record right now. I didn't realize that it was at 9:30 already that I was recording this. That is exactly when Fern gets fed, which is probably why she was coming over, because she was actually hungry and expecting the food, as Cat does. So I should do that for myself too, have like a time where I'm like, I expect food to be made, and then I go and I make it for myself so that I could actually eat it at that time. That's not how this works though. I just go eat whenever, or just drink chocolate milk all night and not actually have any dinner. So Reputation, fantastic change. Much appreciated. I think that the ship's log, captain's log, pirate's log, all of that stuff was so generally convoluted. I would much rather you just be very clear about what these are. These are reputations. It's where you're going to have that stuff in there, similar to the way that they've added the seasonal deeds and the different acts and the different goals in there, along with the seasonal renown to have like your actual your pirate legend or your pirate. No, what is it called? As a season pass. That's what I'm looking for. The seasonal renown is the season pass, and just having that all kind of in their own little buckets. I think that's a much better way to go about it. They don't have to be special. They don't have to be fancy. Just let folks understand what they are based on kind of what other games do. Keep things kind of simple. Keep it simple. KISS. If you've ever worked in theater, you know what KISS means. But outside of that, I like that they've done this. The other things that are coming are going to be tied to Outpost cosmetics. There's a new Outpost stock. They have the pale resolute hull, sails, and flag. I was absolutely wrong about this. I do actually like the way they look. I think that they're nice. The purple Regal Hound set is brought into there as well. And then Blunder bombs fired from cannons into other ships will now push ships in a more predictable direction. The double barrel pistol now reloads reliably when rapidly fired and reloaded in quick succession. Players, this is one that I'm glad I saw. Players sitting on the barrel on the lower deck of a sloop can now consistently be damaged by sword attacks. That was a fun bug that we found out about. And then exiting crouch while sprinting and quickly aiming down sights should no longer cause pirates to briefly stutter. Who is doing this? What is the use case for this? Exiting crouch by sprinting and quickly aiming down. Are you chasing someone? Are you like some sort of hunter in the jungles going after a wild boar that you're crouched down and then having to sprint as you're like pulling out your flintlock pistol, aiming it sideways at the white boar? What is causing this? But anyway, good to know that you won't have that weird brief stutter. I definitely did see some issues this weekend with the game, just stability wise, weird things clipping through things, weird interactions with ships and Burning Blade that for whatever reason caused some issues. So there's always going to be a few things here. Sailing near a skeleton camp no longer causes ship interiors to appear overly bright. But I did find out that if you open up the side vaults in a skeleton camp over and over and over again, because you can actually wait for them to close and then you can reopen them for credit towards that commendation to open those. If you mess around with a vault too much as a Burning Blade, I had to try and complete a vault that had reset, but because we had been opening up the same two mini vaults, that those constellations were just stuck in place. There was a second constellation set that was running behind the original one that we had first used, and I had to try and complete constellations with two sets of constellation stars without being able to see where the actual pinpoint of the light was, and that was fun. That was an adventure. Ooh, here's a fun one. Crews experiencing technical issues when diving beneath the waves should no longer find themselves returned to the surface alongside a duplicate version of their ship. Man, that must have been weird. I wonder if you actually got to crew both of them, if that was the case. And then further improvements have been made to the game's stability to reduce scenarios where players unexpectedly exit the game or become disconnected from their session. At least not on Insiders. I was bringing up my orb of secrets for my reward this week, and disconnected. Game Insiders just absolutely crashed, a hard crash. And then it's like, would you like to run an integrity check? And I'm like, I would have been fine if the integrity was there from the start, but sure, let's go with that. Blowpipe music tune should no longer be heard when on the Ferry of the Damned. Players climbing inside the cartographer cannons will now retain their intended field of view. Gilded Phoenix ship crests now display correctly when viewed at the back of a ship. The symbol on the purple Resolute sails is now correctly positioned. The Nightfall Hunter shirt icon now shows the pirate's hand in the correct position. The glint of treasure viewed at a distance will now twinkle more randomly and not pulse consistently with other treasure. Sprinting while holding a fort key no longer causes hand animations to jump after stopping. Pirates burying items should now have a consistent shadow in sync with their animations. Quest board maps, you guys remember the quest board, to islands with skeleton camps should now display the correct island visuals. Fun fact, the island maps where they've got the new sanctuaries at them have been updated, so that actually is accurate now. Appreciate that. Players firing the alter ego Eye of Reach should no longer find the weapon clips into the camera. The amethyst mercenary flag now appears correctly when equipped on the brigantine. There's quite a bit of other little fixes here and there, but having looked at some of these, it doesn't look like there are too many that are really worth talking about. I will say that there was one players without an active PlayStation Plus subscription are prevented from entering high seas and shown the appropriate error message on repeat attempts. Just as a reminder, if you don't have that PlayStation Plus or Xbox Game Pass, you do have to have safer seas as the only access, if I recall. Let's see if there was anything else. That's about it as far as like the fixes and stuff that I've been seeing. As always, if you're running into stuff like this, it's always best to try and capture some sort of evidence of it when doing a submission to help out with that. And yeah, I think that's it. Season 11 Legacy Cosmetics have been brought to the Outpost shops. So that sort of thing, if you're looking to, you will be able to purchase some of that, including the fog piercing frog lantern, which is now also available. So if you missed out on the frog lantern from season 11, definitely recommend going to pick that up, as well as the weather beaten gloves and mysterious dress from Briggsy and Belle. Definitely love those. The Belle's dress in particular is one of the best cosmetics in the game, along with like Briggsy's hat. So just kind of keep that out there in your mind. If you do happen to log in, you could definitely jump in and actually grab some of these older things if you haven't gotten them in the past. There is a bunch of stuff that is coming into the Emporium as per usual. In this case, it is actually going to be the Frozen Tundra. No, the Tundra Wanderer, which is a nice kind of walrus looking cosmetics. A lot of it is really cool looking. I actually think they did a good job with these. You do have the Tundra Wanderer clothing bundle, as well as a drum, weapons bundle that includes the Eye of Reach, blunderbuss, the double barrel pistol, and the throwing knife, which is it's an interesting one. There is a ship crest, as well as collector sales, figureheads, the regular set as well too. I like it. I think they did a good job. It's flashy. It's got some good color schemes on it. It's cool. I like it. One of the things that you do want to keep an eye out for as well too is for $6, you can get a bundle of festive hats. These are Santa hats. It's got the fur-lined cap with the ball of fluff at the end of the tip of the hat. There's a black one, and then there's a red one. If you're into Krampus or if you're into Santa, you can have a good time with that. Definitely like that they put that out. Not a huge fan that it's you got to buy them in the store. I think I would have liked it to have been like a reward for something for like the Festival of Giving, but we are getting Festival of Giving stuff, so I can't really complain too much. They also brought in the Ghostly Curse pet bundles, as well as a Ragamuffin if you wanted to have a ghostly Ragamuffin cat. They also brought in a slew of glacial pets as well too, with the Glacial Curse, and have offered up a bundle for that. And then there's a time limited Dark Constellation cat, which is really cute. I like it. It's one of those things, but it's only going to be available during season 18, which means that if you miss out on it now, just wait, because at this point they'll probably bring it back, because they bring back pretty much everything. Bone collar stuff is back in the Emporium. So if you've missed out on those, or the Festival of Giving weapons bundle, those are all in the Emporium for the time being. And then the free emote of the humble gift is available, which I think I've already had, now that I think about it. But there are some bundles out there, some store specials. Like if you want the Bone Chiller stuff, there's the Festival Fright bundle. If you want the Tundra Temple bundle or Tempo bundle, that'll give you the drum and the costume, as well as some ancient coins and some captain's chests, some gold. Then there's the season pass as well. If you guys are looking for ways to kind of get some of this stuff without necessarily having to buy it all outright, you can actually pick up the bundles and get some of the stuff actually for a pretty good deal. I think that actually covers pretty much everything. I'm trying to take a look here and see if there's anything that I'm missing. One thing that I did want to remind everyone too. Actually tested this out. So if you come across a crew who comes after you 3 times within an hour and 45-minute period, the losing crew will then actually get migrated out of the server. We actually ran into this. There were we were in a galleon this weekend, and we were going to Crook's Hollow. There were 2 sloops there. One of them had a name that was not great. The other one was just another sloop. And we ended up sinking both of them. We then had both of them come back after us, and we ended up still sinking them. In meantime, we actually had a Reaper 1 sloop that was sailing by, and we were wondering if they were actually going to do anything because of Reapers. And I'm pretty sure that they looked at us having just sank 2 sloops, and we're like, I think we're good. I think we could go do some other stuff. I think we could probably not mess with that galleon. But then within the 1 hour and 45 minute period, one of the crews actually came back a third time. And we were very surprised about this. We were actually wondering, would they actually get server merged off of the server? And it was really funny because after they sank, the guy was in the water asking permission to come aboard. And every single one of us in game was like, no, you're about to get merged out. And he's like, wait, what? And then he just disappeared. It was the funniest thing I think I'd seen in a while. It was really, really funny just to be like, nah, you're actually out of here, buddy. You're gone. You had your opportunity. You failed each time. You're going to have to find a new server. And it was great. So, there's definitely points where after an hour and 45 minutes, if a crew has not won and they've come back 3 times, they will get server merged off of the server. And I appreciate that as someone, who wants to have players' times respected. After 3 opportunities, if you still cannot sink the other crew, then you're probably not going to, because you keep coming back to the fight with fewer and fewer supplies, with fewer opportunities to really catch them. And unless you're working with someone else, or you happen to manage to get a really good play with some Black Betties, chances are pretty low. If you didn't win 2 times, the third time is going to be a pretty hard bet to make. And I appreciate that they did this because it actually happened to us. And I didn't realize that was something that was something they could do. But the good news is that there were some questions regarding how this would apply for people who are trying to use the Skull of Siren Song voyage as a way to stay within a server, because you won't get merged off if you are on that voyage and you're actively participating in it. If you sink, you'll still respawn relatively close. And the intent was that they wanted to give players an opportunity as a catch-up mechanic, if they did lose, to still be able to go after the Skull of Siren Song once it's been opened up. In that case, but we did find out that if you're not actively participating in the Skull of Siren Song, you just have the voyage open, you will not be protected by this rule of getting sunk 3 times and then getting server merged off. They said that crews engaging with the same rival repeatedly will now find that they will be migrated away to a new server after subsequent losses. The time period of that is 1 hour and 45 minutes from the time of the first sink, and this rule set will not affect crews taking part in any encounter with the Burning Blade. The crews engaging with the Skull of Siren Song will need to be actively participating in the voyage to remain exempt. So the world event and the Skull of Siren Song, you have to actively be working towards those, or just be engaged with the Burning Blade. In that case, the Burning Blade itself makes sense because it is a ship that is crewed both by people and by skeletons, so it by nature is going to be harder to take out than any standard crew which just has players on it. And as a result, they want to ensure that people have the opportunity to sink the blade if they don't necessarily get to do that within that time frame. So interesting approach from this. I can understand why they wanted to try and whittle down skeletons, and they may lose their ship or sink with the Burning Blade, but kind of interesting overall. I think it was a good choice to make, and I think it helps kind of protect the nature of a good crew who's trying to get stuff done, but consistently gets attacked. And even though they're still winning the fights, it is still annoying to have the same crew come back 3, 4. I've had 5 times. I think I had a burning blade where a crew came back, I think 5 times, and they lost every single time. And this would still exempt them from that because they're still going after the burning blade. But there's definitely been times where crews have just been a buzzing fly around you, like nothing that you can really, like, you can stop them, but they're being more annoying than they are actually like productive, especially when you're trying to do stuff. Now, a lot of the dive system in the game now has alleviated that issue. Like if you need to get away from someone who's just being annoying, they're not actually trying to like sink you, and they're just trying to be like a hyena on the prowl, you can eventually get away from them, whether you jump into a portal or you dive away from them, or you sink them enough times. There's ways to kind of alleviate that. But I appreciate this new rule set as a way to try and help protect good players from being harassed multiple times. And this is something that would even extend out to streamers as well, too. If you have streamers who are competent and can sink someone who's stream sniping them, if they sink them 3 times within that 1 hour and 45 minute time period, then you can actually, like, you could avoid having to deal with them until they manage to somehow get a server or a ship on a server again. And I appreciate that. I appreciate that they are looking for ways to help preserve good players from being harassed by people who are just, for whatever reason, going after that one ship over and over again. And I didn't think I'd see it in the first week, but sure enough, it actually happened. And it was kind of a nice way to test and see, like, will this actually work? Which, spoilers, it does. So kind of cool. All right, pirates, that is going to do it for this episode. A little bit longer because there was a lot to go over to make sure that you're prepared for this, but hopefully you enjoyed this content. Hopefully you guys are enjoying the podcast, and definitely be sure to check out the prophecies on the YouTube channel. Again, as the recording, I have not gotten a chance to sit down and actually upload that 7th one. That will be the thing that I work on this weekend, or not this weekend. Sorry, it's already the end of the week. This week. I'll be working on those to try and get that last one up so that in case anyone wants to, they can go back and take a look. I will go ahead and link where you can watch these on Twitch if you wanted to just, shotgun all 7 in one go. It's about 20 minutes worth of orb, giving you the prophecies, but I'll go ahead and leave a link for that in the show notes. Shout out to Status Hidden for providing that to us earlier on. And pirates, if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, always feel free to reach out. There's the Discord, which is a fantastic way to get a hold of people, just in general. And if not, there's always social medias, so you can always reach out to me. I'm just Captain Logun, Logun, on social medias. I think I'm going to be playing more this week with A-Chick as we're working towards just some of the commendations and stuff like that. So, keep an eye out on Twitch for myself or other folks that I might be sailing with. And don't forget that the Festival of Giving kicks off tomorrow, the beginning, 15th. So pirates, if you are a pirate legend, you're going to get access to that emote. You'll be able to go around and actually present gifts to other people, which will then give you the obsidian grapple gun and voyages of luck, and a guaranteed gold voyage of luck if you give it up to 10 or give it to 10 people. And then there's also the supporter streamer, which is going to get you the access to the the mercenary ship stuff, as well as the obsidian double barrel pistol cosmetic. So lots of stuff to keep in mind. Or remember, anything starting on the 15th will be going to the 2nd of January. So you may not necessarily have to do it right away, but you will have at least until after the new year to be able to get this stuff. So good to know as far as like what you have to worry about. I think outside of that is going to do it. So pirates, thank you. I love you, and I look forward to sailing with you on the Sea of Thieves.